Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbprou.com.
Good evening and welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and look forward to having a great evening talking small business with you. As you know, in business, your business can only go as far as you're prepared to take it. So at the end of the day, developing your leadership skills and your knowledge is going to allow you to take your business further, faster. And that's really what this show is all about. I always have great guests talking about different topics that could be helpful for entrepreneurs and business owners. And tonight we're going to be on one of our main topics because it's your most important job as a business owner, that's marketing and sales. So we're going to talk a little bit about, how to shine your brilliance in the marketplace. Most business owners really do not come across as powerfully in the marketplace as they could. And definitely the better you come across, the more successful you're going to be. So I'm excited about having my guest tonight, Angela Heath. She helps people to really, deliver and really bring their expertise to the forefront so everybody can see it. So really excited to have her tonight, and we look forward to a great conversation. Hey, Angela, how you doing tonight?
I am fabulous. How are you, Andrew?
I'm excellent. Glad to be able to hang out with you this evening.
Same here.
Okay. So, we've talked, and I've actually gone to one of your classes. So looking forward to really having you share some of the things that I learned from you. And but before we get started, if you could take a couple minutes, talk a little bit about your journey, sort of how you got to where you are and what you're doing. And then, we'll follow up and, start having our conversation.
Okay. Well, guess what, everybody? You're not going to believe it. I barely believe it myself, but I got started because I got fired. That's right. I got fired. Years ago, over 25 years ago, I joined a consulting company because I knew after being in a corporate structure that probably wasn't a good fit for me. See, I'm a very independent thinker. I have a lot of talents and skills that I want to use. And you know how it is in corporations. You get a position and that's the thing you do. And I wanted to be outside of the box. So I got a job with what we call Beltway bandits in the DC area, meaning those consulting companies that have a lot of government contracts. And in 6 months, I was fired. I won't tell you all the gory details, but needless to say, in 6 months, they gave me 6-week severance. They didn't mess with my unemployment. So I think I was in the right. And because of that, it thrust me into actually becoming the consultant I always wanted to be. But honestly, I was scared to be. So being fired is what started me on my journey. And I call that one of the opportunities in life to allow your brilliance to be dimmed, but the choice is yours. And I chose to let it shine. And I started my first business. Didn't know what I was doing.
Okay, excellent. Well, definitely there's a lot of things that you learn after you get into business. I think nobody fully knows what they're doing, but there's a lot of learning and opportunities to grow. And hopefully, there's two ways to sort of learn, by learning from people who know what they're talking about, or by losing money. So the show is to hopefully help people learn by not losing as much money. You're always going to lose a little bit, but definitely, I think that, definitely think that, we'll be able to get some good things out of this. So, Angela,
Yes.
Take a minute to talk about what you do now, because I think they've got a little bit about your background, but what are you doing? Who are you right now?
So right now I help people who are like subject matter experts. All of us know people in our industries, in our niche. They're like brilliant. They really do their job well, but they're not shining in the marketplace. So I help them shine. And we do it in a couple ways. One is through a book that is positioned to grow their business. One is through signature speeches, because standing on stages, talking to the media is another way to shine in the marketplace. And then by having tools that you can offer people that prove that you are an expert. Because Andrew, what I've found is that, a lot of people shy away from the word expert. It doesn't mean that you're the absolute top in your field, but what it means is that for your target audience, you know more than they know. And if you don't have the answers, you're an expert enough to say, I don't know exactly, but I know where to get the answer. And you go get the answer for them. So that's what you've got to let people know in the marketplace, that you are the person in your niche who has a lot of answers. So I help them bring that forward.
Okay. So basically it's about being the person who can solve their problems, whether
Absolutely.
it's immediately, or it may take a little bit of time or a little bit of work to figure it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. So before we get started, we run this show through the Small Business Pro University. So it's good for people to know, what is the Small Business Pro University? So I've got a short video that we'll check out, and then we'll come back talking small business. Many small businesses experience low or no revenue growth, and the owners are not making enough money. I founded Small Business Pro University to help you break that cycle by empowering you with greater knowledge and enhanced skills to lead your organization more effectively. Over the past 15 years, I've collaborated with organizations like the Small Business Development Center, Rising Tide Capital, Empower the Village, NJMEP, Rutgers University, and SCORE to work one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and teach tens of thousands of people about business. My experience includes serving as a naval officer, managing businesses, graduating from MIT, earning an MBA from NYU, and achieving the CFA designation, which has prepared me to accomplish my mission of helping 1,000,008 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Small Business Pro University empowers entrepreneurs like you to run their businesses more professionally and create sustainable enterprises. We employ my proven proprietary Masterpreneur Playbook framework to guide your journey along the Masterpreneur path and facilitate your Masterpreneur evolution to work on your business and scale faster and easier. Small Business Pro University provides access to valuable resources, partnerships, and relationships that will help you to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth. Our Masterpreneur initiatives include the Small Business Pro Network, 100+ expert-led multimedia courses, intensive training workshops, Spanish language training, Leadership Live at 8:05 live stream and podcast, in-person Power Breakfast events, and advisory coaching, consulting, and training services. All right, welcome back. I'm here with Angela Heath, talking small business. Our topic tonight is how to shine your brilliance in the marketplace. Definitely, we got a lot of things to cover tonight. Got some great questions and comments in the chat. Hello from Maryland. I was actually just in Maryland last weekend and spoke at an event in Baltimore area, which was really great for the Highlanders. And actually,
I'm in Maryland.
You're in Maryland. That's true. That's true. So definitely grandmapreneur. All right. So, definitely, the first question, I think you already answered it, is really how do you define brilliance in business? Which you talked a little bit about how being the expert, but you don't have to be the absolute expert.
But that's a good question, Andrew, because when you think about brilliance, like we're in a really strange time. Like I was listening to a podcast on my way home, and the guy said, 10 years ago, there was only one Tony Robbins, but today there are about 8 billion of them. And basically what he was saying is that everyone is copying everyone else. They want to follow their favorite influencer and talk like them and dress like them. Your brilliance is your uniqueness. It's the thing that's at the core of who you are. I feel like it's a combination of, those natural talents that you have and all of the skills that you've learned along the way, certifications, degrees, and life experience. But then there's also something inside of you called passion, called dreams. And when you kind of pull, all of these together, that's where I feel like your brilliance is. So it's not replicating what somebody else is doing. It's being true to the core of who you are.
Okay. Excellent. So definitely thanks for your question, Michael. And, a question I was looking to, probably going to ask anyways next. So it beat me to the punch is, what's the first step for someone starting out in business?
Someone starting out in business, I think they have to do honest self-assessments. Figure out what is the thing that you do very well, and not just because you think so. I would love for you to have some proof or some commitment to learning. So if you want to do something you've never done before, but you really don't know how to do it, that's okay. Put the commitment to learn how to master it to some degree. Again, you only have to be an expert above the people you're talking to and serving. So once you figure out sort of what your expertise is, then you've got to go to the marketplace. There's no sense in us offering something, no matter how good we are at it, and the marketplace doesn't want it. So you need to do your research about the marketplace. Who's your ideal customer? Where do they hang out? How do they talk? Where would you find them? And how do you convince them that you are the person to help them solve their problems? And there are lots of tools out there that can help you with that. Does that make sense, Andrew?
Definitely. I mean, I would say that what you're really talking about is you got to develop your marketing plan.
Yes.
Unfortunately, everybody always says failing to plan is planning to fail. But I'd say 80 to 90% of business owners I run into either don't have a business plan or have one that's way outdated. So, that's one of the easiest ways you can increase the likelihood of your success. And really, it's about developing what Angela just said. Things don't just happen by happenstance. you have to prepare for them.
Can
So,
I add something to that?
sure.
Having a business plan is great, but this is what I found. Most people never implement it. They do the business plan, they go to the class, they finish the business plan, put it up on the shelf, and all it does is collect dust. You've got to implement the plan. You've got to put the plan somewhere, however you work, in some format so that it's visible and so that you are accountable to the steps that you said in your work plan that you were going to do. A lot of people never follow their work plan.
Definitely that's important. And even when you have a business plan, when you're creating your business plan, you have to test it with the marketplace.
Right.
So it's not like you only work on your business plan, but it should evolve with you. So no, it's a great point.
There's like, what do they call it these days? There's a permanent state of the pivot. Because everything is changing so fast. I remember like years ago when people used to do like these really long, and I'm sure big enterprises still do it to some degree, like 10-year, like looks into the future and just trying to be prepared. But I'm telling you, the more technology kicks in, the more challenging it becomes to be any kind of futurist. So there's a lot of pivoting going on today, and there's probably just going to be more.
Yes. Well, the good thing is that is an opportunity for smaller business owners because you can pivot faster and easier than larger businesses. So it's an opportunity to take advantage, but you still need to have a plan to know when and whether you need to pivot and how you might pivot in the situation. So always important. So now, you talked a little bit about, being an expert, but there's different ways to become an expert. And also what type of businesses is this best for? Like, is this for service businesses? Is it for product businesses? Is it for individual businesses or medium or larger businesses? Who does this work best for in terms of what you're talking about?
So a lot of the companies that I work with tend to be knowledge based, meaning that they sell their expertise, they sell their brilliance. But when you think about it, today, the way businesses are, and again, it depends on what your goals are. When I look at the statistics and I see that most of the business in America, vast majority, like 80% or maybe 84, depending on which stat you believe, are very small, micro-sized businesses. And for some people, that's fine. For other people, they want to become the next TikTok. Well, when you think about the strategy for that micro-sized business versus that business that's looking for funding and all of that, it doesn't matter. When you put your brilliance on display, it is going to help. Now, if you've got a product, your product in a lot of ways is evidence of your brilliance. If you are an artist and you've got like a beautiful sculpture or something, putting that on display is your brilliance. If you're a writer or a musician, putting that on display is your brilliance. We cannot get past helping our customers find us. That's what we call putting on display.
All right. So it works in many cases, but knowledge based more often. And there's different ways that you can demonstrate it. How do you determine how someone can demonstrate their brilliance, or how, when you work with someone, what are some of the factors you look for, and what are some of the strategies you utilize?
So it really does depend on the person's goal. It depends on their personality. It depends on what they prefer to do. You've got some people who say, Angela, I am not going to be out front. They would never do a podcast like this. I don't want to show my face. Every business is not personality driven. You know, sometimes I think in today's society, we get that confused, but you don't have to be personality driven. So it determines, do you want to speak in public? Do you want your face to be seen? Do you want your company to be known, or do you have a personal brand? You have to determine those kinds of things. Are you willing to take media training? And the answers to those questions will help you determine, along with where can we find your ideal customers, because we've got to have you in places where your customers are. And another thing that is like a misnomer, a lot of people say, you know, be everywhere. I'm not against that if you've got the bandwidth for it, but I say be where your customers are. So you don't have to be on every social media platform. You don't have to be seen everywhere. If you want to have expertise within a particular industry, you could be one of the top in that industry, and many people outside that industry have never heard your name. So it really does depend, Andrew, on what the individual wants, where they want to go with their company, and what they feel comfortable doing.
Okay, great. So definitely it's important as a business owner to really think about what you really want. You know, a lot of people go into business and are not overly clear about that. So it's good that you know, when you look at it, you help people clarify that. So you know, definitely you talked about ideal customers, and that's really the key to success. You know, finding your ideal customer out of your target market. Um, but that's easier said than done. Um, so if someone's looking to try and find their ideal customer, first, you know, what's your definition of an ideal customer, and you know, how should people look at trying to figure out who their ideal customer is?
The way I define an ideal customer is that person that you want to sell to and the person who wants to buy from you. So we've got to find those people. And I actually think that it's a little easier now, because you think about it, years ago, we didn't have like social media. We didn't have all of these communities, all of these groups. I actually think it's easier to find ideal customers. But sometimes we think that there's going to be a group of people who will purchase from us, but we don't know until we put the product out in the marketplace. Let me give you an example from my own life. At one point, I wanted to help like people 45 and older who were chronically unemployed, because I do train people on how to become freelancers. I've been doing that for years. And I wanted to help, you know, back during one of the recessions, I wanted to help this group of people, because I said, oh my gosh, they are fumbling and bumbling when they get laid off because they're forgetting their brilliance. And I wanted to help them. And I spent all of this time figuring out what I thought as a expert, what they needed, and offering it to them. And guess what I found out? I thought they would be standing in line because I had the answer, I thought, to their pain point. And I found out they weren't interested so much in having their own business. They were interested in somebody teaching them how do they get their next job. So although when I wrote out the plans for these programs that I was creating, I thought these people, chronic unemployed people, were going to be my ideal customer, but I was not offering what they wanted. I thought they needed it, but they didn't want it. So
Okay, and that, you know, that really is a key point, because you know, you don't know for sure. It makes sense that they may need it, but sometimes people need stuff but don't want it.
A lot of times they
you
need
know.
it and don't want it. That's what I always say. If we could
Right.
find out how to, like, what is that song? It says a spoonful of medicine, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. So if we can figure out how to give them what they want and then slide in what they really need.
Well, that and then also, you know, that's part of the role of nonprofits in many cases, you know, helping people with things that they, you know, may not decide to do on their own, or may not be able to do on their own, I would say.
But you know, with that customer avatar, what did I ended up doing because they didn't want to pay me?
Right.
I went to government agencies and I said, hey, here's the statistics. Here are the facts that we're facing in our country with these chronically unemployed people. And actually, I did get some contracts through government agencies and foundations who wanted to help those people. So I just went through a back door.
Right. Right. So, you know, you got to find who has the problem that you have the solution to, and make sure that they are actually willing to pay for the solution. So
And they can pay.
Yeah, they can and will. You know, so that definitely was a good pivot. So, you know, definitely, you know, we've got a question here about solopreneurs and identifying what makes them special. I know you hit on some of this, but do you want to have anything to add?
Yeah, I think like solopreneurs, I think a lot of times what we do is we forget the past, right? Because we want to bring the totality of who we are. And, you know, I'm loving like what's happening today. I'm watching people, I just collect testimonials of people who are going after business opportunities in the strangest ways because they are bringing everything forward and they are looking at it, you know, talent, skills, interest. They're looking at all of that and they're creating something unique. So, as a solopreneur, you really have to do some honest self assessments about what you can bring to the marketplace. You have to look at, in the area that you're interested in, how are people serving it up? Who's buying it? Is there any place for you to be unique and creative with what you do? You know, I think about this woman that I heard, she was doing dog walking, but she had higher expectations than that. And next thing you know, now she is grooming dogs. And then next thing you know, now she is spray painting dogs. You know, people love their dogs. And then next thing you know, there are people painting the toenails of dogs. And next thing you know, here's doggy treats, here's doggy clothes here, and it's like a whole ecosystem. So when we start to think about these things, we've got to open our eyes. We can't just look in our local communities. We need to look broad and even, you know, around the world and find out how are people approaching this problem? Is there anything that I can learn from somewhere else or another industry? Is there any talent, any skill, any interest that I have that would help me to produce or engage with it in a different way? So honest self-assessment is, I think, the very first step of an entrepreneur. But always know, like I said earlier, we can come up with something, but we always have to test it in the marketplace. And that's going to grow. You know, we've got that plan, but our plan is going to pivot. Our plan is going to change when we get a dose of reality. But yeah, we've got to do some assessment.
Okay. Definitely, you know, knowing where you are, because, you know, if you don't know where you are, how are you going to successfully get to where you want to be? So definitely that's key. So, you know, not only do you help people figure this out, but also, you know, in this day and age, there's such great technology available, and especially for small business owners, it can be really a game changer in what you're doing. And I know you utilize that as part of the process. So definitely want to talk more about that. And, we'll get into that for the second half of the show. But before we do that, I got a quick video where you can learn a little bit about something that we provide for entrepreneurs every week as well. And then we're back talking small business with Angela Heath. Will 2025 be your best year ever? My mission is helping 1,000,008 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Hi, Andrew here with the plan of the week. As everybody knows, failing to plan is planning to fail. And that's why I created the POW. Incorporating the POW into your weekly routine will help you achieve success faster and easier. Each week, we have a different theme in addition to valuable tips from last week's live stream guest expert, online and in-person events that you don't want to miss, the profile of our member of the week, which could be you, and find out about opportunities for grants, contracts, and other resources. Last but not least, test drive our free mini course of the week on Small Business Pro University. Scroll down through the POW for business tips, opportunities, and more event details. I look forward to helping you make 2025 your best year ever. And always remember, the more that you know, the faster your business will grow. All right, so definitely each week we have the new POW. I put the link in the chat, and
I like the POW.
Yeah, so definitely. So now, Angela, one of the key things that a lot of businesses have an opportunity to utilize is AI. And you have AI in a lot of tools that you normally use, but then there's also AI tools that are really just utilizing AI directly. And it can be a little bit confusing and a little bit scary for people. So what's AI 101? As a small business owner, where should you start if you have no exposure or understanding of AI?
I think the very first thing we have to do as business owners is take a look at what do we do regularly, every day, every week, every month, every quarter. If we see patterns, then we say, let's go over and see how AI can help us. Now, of course, everybody's using AI for content, but even there, we want to streamline it. We want to train it. We want it to sound like us. We don't want, our brand to sound like a robot. But I believe if we take a look at those repeated activities that we do, then we go and say, how can AI help us with that? I think that makes the most sense. You go crazy trying to keep up with all of these changes with AI because they're changing like every day. We need the ones that are going to help us, right?
Okay. So really, you have to have your plan or know what you want before you can really take full advantage of it. And I took your class. I don't remember the name of the class, but it was really good. And we learned some things about AI and how to utilize it for some of the projects that I'm looking to do as well. What was the name of the class and sort of what did you teach us?
Okay, I did a class. I change the names of classes all the time because I experiment and I learn, but it was about high converting lead magnets. And basically, this is the deal. People think of our digital tools, the materials that we offer, the checklist, the assessments, and all of these different digital tools that we put out there in the marketplace. They think the only way to use these tools is to generate some leads, an ethical bribe. Here's a great tool for you. Give me your email, your cell phone number, so that I can then nurture the relationship with you and I can hopefully sell you something. Well, when you think about digital tools, I want us to really think broadly, and that's what we did in the class, is to think broadly about how can we use digital tools. Today, there are so many great tools that you can create for your own business and put it into your offers to your customers and blow them away. Most of the time, when I show people these simple tools, no code, I am a non-techie tech. And if I can create tools, you can create tools. But you take these, you put them into your workflows, you put them into your offerings, you put them into your tools that you're going to use for your customers. And again, it comes from thinking through, how can AI save us time, effort, money, and put us on the cutting edge in the offers that we make to our customers? So I really like AI. I'm having fun.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So, okay, and a couple questions from the audience. One, I think, is important. Habits are very important. So, what are some of the daily habits to really develop your brilliance as far as what you're doing in your business?
So when I think what this question is talking about is developing like your expertise. I believe that's what you're talking about, Kathy. So we know that knowledge is like moving exponentially. So I always try to take at least 40 minutes in the morning. I mean, you determine what time works for you, but I do it in the morning where I have AI tools look at what are the hot topics that have landed on Google the night before or the day before, and I have summaries of those topics in my industry. So we want to take some time to make sure that we stay refreshed so that when we're talking to people, we're talking about the latest and the greatest. That's what experts do. We don't let our knowledge get stale. So that's one thing, keeping up with current trends. Another thing that we want to do is to hone our skills. So whatever that thing is that we're offering in the marketplace, if you find a webinar or a course or something that's going to help you learn something that will just add a little value, then you may say, I'm going to decide in this month or in this quarter, the thing that I really need to learn to help my business grow is XYZ. I always try to warn people, do not get stuck in that trap where you're running to everybody's webinar, you're running to everybody's training, you're spending so much time learning, and you don't have any time to implement. The learning is in the implementation. So you're going to follow trends, you're going to learn things that you need to make your business grow, and then you also want to think about how can you get your brilliance out there. So, for example, if you want to be on local TV shows, well, you can have an assistant if you have one, or you yourself can say, well, I'm going to work on that a half hour a day where I'm going to do some pitching so that I can get on local television. So those are some things that I think are really important for developing your brilliance and also putting your brilliance out there.
All right. So definitely, that makes a lot of sense. You talked about, every day it's important to make some progress. And, Like if you have a big goal like that, they always say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So, if you chip away at what you want to accomplish on a daily basis, that can really allow you to look up and really be a lot further along than you expected. So that's definitely true. So now, another question from the audience about brilliance being learned or natural. I think leadership, that's a question about leadership a lot of the times as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a combination of both. Think about it. Brilliance is in the eye of the beholder. Again, the way I define expert is that you know more than your target audience. And if you don't have the answer, you know where to get the answer. So I think it's a combination of both. And there's some things that people are naturally brilliant at. When you take like a musician or something, they're 4 years old and they're playing the guitar. Now that's natural brilliance, right? But we also talk about brilliance in terms of skills that are learned. So they're like, for example, people think that I'm brilliant in AI. Again, look at the target audience I'm serving. They don't know as much about it. They think I'm brilliant. And in actuality, I'm not brilliant in it. I just know more than them and I know where to get the answers. So some of that is learned and some of that is natural. Some of the natural things that we have inside of us that then help us with our skill set is curiosity, innovation, not being afraid of failure, being willing to test and learn, to know that there's no such thing as failure. You don't fail until you stop. So if you have that kind of attitude, you would be willing to perhaps do something a little different that, you've done your research the best you can. You've got this gut feeling that it'll work. You want to be cautious about how much money you might be putting at risk, but you go ahead and do the thing and see what the results will be. You do the best that you can do with that. But again, if it was 100%, we would not have as much business failure as we have in the country. But brilliance is like, it's in the eye of the beholder. And I think it's also in your soul. When you know at your core that you're good at a thing, I think that's where it really resonates from. When you're good at something.
Yeah, no, definitely. And everybody has an area of knowledge and or expertise. So it's just, drawing it out. A lot of times people don't know what theirs is. What are some things they can do to help figure out what their area is or what they should be looking to do?
There are lots of assessments out there that people can take that looks at hard skills, soft skills. Most of the time, it's really just sitting down with someone, maybe a career coach or a counselor or something like that, who can help you talk through what do you actually enjoy doing. Usually in your area of brilliance, not all the time, but usually in your area of brilliance, others will recognize it. You could be training and people say, oh, you're such a great trainer. Or perhaps you are an IT person, you're working by yourself, but you're up all night solving this because it can be solved. And sometimes people don't recognize that, but you solved it. So a lot of times it's such a personal, it's introspective, but there are clues. There's usually clues all throughout your life what you do actually well. Some of the soft skills, great communicators, peacemakers, innovators. Those are things that are hard to measure, but they're things that people say about you. You're always the peacemaker. You think differently from other people. You're so creative with your hands. Those are areas of brilliance. And then again, we look in the marketplace. How can I apply this? I hope that helps.
Okay. So so it's a journey, a learning
The
process.
journey. Yeah.
And you can get professional help, as well as it's beneficial to talk to other people that know you in different areas of your life, that may see you in different ways than you see yourself, uh, which is great. Okay, so now we've covered a lot of different stuff, but one of the questions we've got from Russ is about transforming your personal pain into professional purpose. How does that resonate with audiences?
It's really funny. Getting fired wasn't painful. I went out that night, Russ, and I celebrated because that place was crazy. So I felt like I had been released from jail. But I can tell you another story that was personal. Um, I had that consulting company for over 22 years or something like that. It was pretty successful. I traveled all around the country, speaking, training, consulting. I stood on some pretty fabulous stages, and things were going pretty good. And then all of a sudden, one night, my child came running through the bedroom door to announce, "Mom, I'm having a hot flash." The strange thing about that is that that kid was a boy and that kid was 12. 1 week later, my son was diagnosed with leukemia. Now, that was pain. I was a hospital mom for 3.5 years. I gained 30 pounds, traded in my heels for sneakers, and I don't think I ever wore heels the way I used to since then. So for 3.5 years, I was just worried about him. And so I didn't work very much. I didn't really care. I didn't know that I had actually closed my business. And he was well for 2 years. I went back to the same business. I just wasn't pleased with it. And he had a relapse. And so I was out another year. The real pain, the thing that began to dim my brilliance, was not leukemia. The thing that dimmed my brilliance is that when I came back, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I started imitating other people. I was doing all kind of crazy things. I even tried to sell shoes on, I think it was Etsy, because one of my friends was selling shoes and she made a lot of money. But I was never a fashionista. So even though I went to the same store, same designers, don't ask me why my shoes didn't sell. That was the pain. The pain is always when we can't identify our brilliance. Our pain is always when we can't step into the space we were meant to occupy. So it took me a while, trying to figure out, well, what's my next? If I'm not going to travel around the country, what else can I do? And I had to learn how to develop a business online. And I went back to the basics of who I am. I said, what was it that my customers loved about me? I am basically, at my core, a speaker, a trainer, and an author who writes in order to speak. That's who I am. So I wrote the 4th book. I wrote it for an audience that I know very well because I'm a gerontologist. And that 4th book put me back in the media, gave me profitable partnerships, gave me opportunities to get nice sized contracts. So let me tell you about pain. The pain comes in when we allow fear to stop us from operating in our brilliance. And so it doesn't matter what happens to us. It matters how we get back out there. We don't let things dim our brilliance for long. They can, I mean, let's be real. They can for short periods of time. But down in the core, I believe, of each person, there's something that's screaming. There's something that's screaming out in the marketplace. If you're a business person, there's something that's screaming. And I believe if you take some time, do some reflection, maybe get some professional help, do a little testing in the marketplace, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. But the key is to know that you have something and that it's never over until you stop. I hope that helps.
Okay. No, I think that's, very profound and important situation is, a lot of times the way that you react to things is more important than what actually happened to you. And you talk about fear, or even just focus. Sometimes if you lose focus, then it's really hard to get your traction as well.
And you know what, Andrew? Here's just a little tidbit. I hope it helps somebody. Some of you who are listening to this, you said focus, Andrew. You get unfocused because all of those dings on your phone, notifications, the temptation to somebody like my post, to go over on LinkedIn or wherever you go, that temptation. There are tools that can help you with focus. Please get them. Most of them are free. There are tools that will only allow you to be on social media. You set how many minutes you want to be on social media, and then your screen will come up and say, couldn't you be doing something more progressive than being on social media? So that's another AI thing. Like, let's use those productivity tools that are available to us now to stay on focus and to stay brilliant.
Okay. And it's important also, like I heard a TED talk and he was talking about entrepreneurs and that most of them have ADD. So it's even more difficult for many business owners and entrepreneurs to stay focused. So,
I think that's true. I thought it was just me.
No. My wife says I have ADD. I don't see it though. No.
I don't claim that, but I know that I have a lot of interest. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I see business opportunities like every week, but I have to say that's not for this season. Sometimes I write them down. I have like future business endeavors journal. I'll put them in there so I don't lose them, but we can't do everything.
Right. No, definitely. There's a lot. There's, staying focused is key, and really developing it. How else do you help people be focused? Definitely when they're looking to, become an expert, how do you help them focus on kind of where their expertise should be?
So we have to come up with, this is the plan for the quarter. Stay with the plan. Put on the blinders and do the thing that's for the quarter. I think sometimes, remember that old thing we used to do as trainers? We had the parking lot where somebody came up with an idea, didn't quite fit the conversation or the goal of the meeting, and we just put it on, some newsprint, say, this is the parking lot. We'll come back to this if we have a chance. We'll come back to this at another time. And I think having that parking lot, that's why I have like my future business endeavors journal. It makes me stay focused, because I'm not saying, oh, Angela, you can't do this thing that sounds so fascinating. What I'm saying that right now is not the season for it. So just by recording it, putting in that parking lot, sometimes that's enough to get back to focus. So for me personally, I have to put notations up all around the office because I do have a lot of different interests. But if you could see around here, you would see all kind of little funny notations. I use AI. I use not Siri, but Alexa. Alexa keeps me on focus too. I have Alexa telling me at different times, different things on different days. This is the day when you're focusing on financing. This is the day when you're focusing on getting your SOPs back in order. I use technology to keep me on track and keep me focused.
Excellent. So definitely, there's a lot of ways you can use technology, and you got to sort of understand yourself. What do you need to really, or where are your, what makes you, what are your triggers, or what sorts of things do you generally forget to do that need to make sure you remind yourself to do. So excellent. So we've covered a whole bunch of stuff. This has been a great chat, but an hour is never long enough. So, but before we let you go, definitely want to really boil down 3 key things that people should take away from our conversation tonight, because many times people can't remember more than 3 things. And just for clarity, going forward, what are the 3 things people should remember tomorrow that they can start to implement and utilize to continue to improve as a leader? So I'll give you a sec to sort of think through what you want to share, and I'll play a short video about our Power Breakfast events we do 3 times a year. And if you're in the New Jersey area, you should come check us out. If you are looking to increase revenues, improve profitability, and or obtain financing for your business, you need to check out the Power Breakfast and Small Business Pro conferences. My name is Andrew Frazier. One of the things we're here to do is supercharge your day.
Today's Power Breakfast has really been a phenomenal experience. I think it's exactly what business owners need, some true guidance of people who are genuine and really are leading them in the true direction of business growth and expansion.
The Power Breakfast is so important for the entrepreneurial community because it gives the various business people who come together an opportunity to interact and also do some business.
These events, hosted by Andrew Frazier, President and COO of Small Business Like a Pro, will supercharge your day. All right, welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. I'm here with Angela Heath, and we've been talking about how to shine your brilliance in the marketplace. We're getting ready to close out, but Angela is going to share 3 key things that we should be taking away from our conversation tonight.
All righty, 3 things. Number 1, you're brilliant. You are brilliant. At the core of who you are, there's a brilliance that can't be replicated. It can't be matched. It can't be duplicated because you are unique. Don't be afraid to bring all of who you are, package it together, and introduce it in the marketplace. So you're brilliant. Number 2 is right along with that. You don't have to be a carbon copy. You were born an original. Don't die a carbon copy. So be who you are at the core and let your brilliance shine. Number 3, don't be afraid of shining in the marketplace. Don't allow anybody, anything, any barrier, any delay to dim your light. So if you know that you have something of value to offer, that's going to have you come out in the marketplace with more confidence. And in sales, confidence is one of the keys for sales. So if you believe that you're brilliant, if you believe you have value, when you begin to sell, your potential customer will believe it also. And as you see you all over the marketplace, they're going to be totally convinced. And I think that's it for me.
Excellent. Excellent. So I guess you got to claim and own your brilliance. You got to be yourself and take your whole self into what you're doing. And then you got to be confident. So no, those are 3 great things that people should be thinking about. So once again, Angela, thanks again for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. And is there anything you want to share before you head out?
Yeah, if you guys are interested, we've got some really good trainings coming up at the end of the month. We're going to be talking about how you take your brilliance and create these lead magnets with your brilliance. So I would be happy to share a link to that if that's appropriate.
Okay, great. And we've got your website here in the chat as well as your LinkedIn profile. So if people want to check in with you, definitely that, you welcome that as well. So, okay. Well, thanks again. Hang out for a minute and I'm just going to close out the show. So, definitely enjoyed having Angela as a guest tonight. Appreciate everybody's comments and questions. That's really what makes the live show even better. And that's why I really like doing the live show. Always appreciate everybody tuning in and looking forward to hanging out with you guys next week as well. So next week, we're going to be talking about leads. Not all leads are created equal. So, understanding, how to get the right leads and what the right leads look like. So I think that'll be helpful because, lead generation and developing leads are keys to being able to sell more successfully. So looking forward to next week's show. Our guest is going to be Reed Hansen, and we'll be talking about leads with Reed next week. So just want to say at the end of the day, as a business owner, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.com.